Hey crew, Miss Legia here. I am going to continue to work through our Counterfeit Constitution story, and I'm going to start keeping a running tally or record of some of our vocabulary that we're going through. So, Counterfeit Constitution vocabulary. In our title, we have the word counterfeit. So, counterfeit is not real or an imitation. You may have heard counterfeit from counterfeit money. I know that's where I hear it a lot from. So, counterfeit, it's not real. It's something that's made to imitate something to make it seem real. And then exuberance, we heard that Mimi was in exuberance when she got the notification of being able to go to Washington, D.C. So exuberance meaning overflowing with joy. You're crazy excited. So those are two of our vocabulary words that we've heard thus far in our story, and then I will continue to add on to them as we go. So yesterday, when we finished our story, I asked you to make a prediction of what you think is going to happen in the rest of our story. So I want you to kind of think of that prediction, find that prediction, and see if, as we go on, your prediction was in fact accurate. Okay? And remember, predictions are always changing. The prediction you made yesterday doesn't have to stay the same. So as we go through each chapter, I'm going to ask you again, okay, make a new prediction based on what we learned. What do you think is going to happen? Okay? So we are on chapter 2, George Washington's Wild Ride. Do you think Papa and Grant have left yet? Christina asked her grandmother. Mimi glanced at her watch. Yes, they probably have, she replied. Papa, Christina's grandfather, and Grant were meeting them at the Capitol Hilton Hotel later that night. They were flying to Washington, D.C. on the Mystery Girl, Papa's little red and white airplane. Once the bus lumbered onto the expressway, Mimi began to read her book about the U.S. Constitution. She pointed to a picture of our nation's leaders signing the document. See, Christina? It says here that many of the founding fathers of the United States were at the Constitutional Convention on September 17th, 1787, the night the U.S. Constitution was signed. Curiosity got the best of Christina. What's a founding father? She asked. Our founding fathers were the political leaders who created our government and signed the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, Mimi replied. Or who participated in the American Revolution as leaders of the Patriots. Patriots? Heather asked, peeking over Christina's seat back. Listening to Mimi was interesting. I remember it well, a deep voice remarked. George Washington stepped into the aisle near Mimi and Christina and held on to the silver rail overhead for support. That's what we colonists called ourselves when we rebelled against British control during the American Revolution, he commented. And our 13 colonies, he added, rubbing his chin, became the original 13 United States. Miss Hudson took her cue and stood next to the tall man wearing a white wig and dark blue coat and tan waistcoat and white knee breeches tucked into knee-high black leather riding boots. A broad blue ribbon crossed over his chest. Clap, clap. This is what our Constitution looked like. Or does look like. Still to this day. This is our Constitution. It starts with that preamble, we the people. And down here it's signed by our founding fathers. Can I have your attention, please? Miss Hudson asked. After a few more snickers from the boys and shh from the girls, the bus grew quiet. Miss Hudson grabbed the edge of a seat for balance. As you know, she explained, there is no single person in American's history who had a greater impact on the United States of America than George Washington. We are honored that General Washington could join us on our trip to talk about the U.S. Constitution. She gazed at the tall gentleman standing beside her. General? They're all yours, she said, making a sweeping gesture with her hand. Christina leaned forward in her seat and stole a sideways glance at Mimi. I know he's not George Washington, she whispered, but he sure looks like him. He does look rather dashing in his uniform, doesn't he? Mimi whispered back. And he sounds like he knows his history. Let's help him get started. Mimi raised her hand. What can you tell us about the significance of the U.S. Constitution, General Washington? She asked with general interest. General Washington saw more than 50 faces staring at him. waiting for his answer. "Well," he began, "the signing of the U.S. Constitution was a giant leap in our nation's history." "Like one giant leap for mankind, like the old space program," Dylan interrupted. He looked around expectantly, hoping someone got his joke. Alyssa rolled her eyes. "Dylan, stop trying to be funny. I'm trying to listen here," she scolded. Mimi shifted her seat so she could face the kids. "You know, Dylan, without the brave men in early history of this country, the space program probably wouldn't even exist," she told him. Dylan squirmed in his seat and nodded. "Where were we?" General Washington fiddled with the gorget, the symbol of command and status he wore around his neck. "Oh yes, the U.S. Constitution is a living document from when we make our laws today," he said. "It's alive!" chanted a boy in the back. Everyone giggled. "Class," Miss Hudson warned. "General Washington deserves your complete respect and attention." She narrowed her eyes at the snickering boys in the seat ahead of her. "September 17th is the U.S. Constitution Day. We will study the Constitution, and you will have to write an essay on why 39 brave men chose to sign the Constitution, even though they knew it was an act of treason." The bus grew silent. "So it is in your best interest to listen. Please continue, General," she coaxed. The general gave a quick tug on the lapels of his uniform and went on with the story. "Americans saw themselves as a new society based on new principles of government. But they needed a government that would unite the states with a new set of principles to live and govern by. So those of us in leadership," he explained, "got together with other state representatives and wrote a document so all the 13 states would have a say in how things would be run." "What were the new principles of government?" Holly asked shyly. "Basically, that the people would rule themselves and no longer be controlled by the King of England," the general told her. The kids were all interested by then, and Miss Hudson was grateful for the fun history lesson. General Washington slowly walked down the aisle so he could give everyone a chance to ask questions. Much of the earnest among the colonists began in the 1760s when the British government began to tighten its grip on the colonies, he explained. "Was the king a bad man?" Gavin asked. "No one who was a king and ruled a country should be bad, right?" "No, King George III was not a bad man," General Washington answered. "England had spent a lot of money during the French and Indian War in America. He wanted to collect taxes to help pay the debt. The colonists felt that they were being taxed unfairly because they had no representatives in the English government. No taxation without representation, as our 5th graders have learned. On July 4th, 1776, the Second Continental Congress issued the Declaration of Independence, telling the king that they would no longer allow him to rule them, he added, making a fist. "What made them decide to write the U.S. Constitution?" JC asked. Miss Hudson saw that they were approaching their hotel. "That answer will have to wait until the next time we're all together," she replied. "Do you really have wooden teeth?" Charlie asked. Everyone on the bus howled with laughter. General Washington bent down and smiled so the boy could see his gleaming white teeth. "I began to lose my teeth in my 20s, he said, "but was blessed with the finest dentures of my time, made of hippopotamus ivory, gold, and a few other things," he replied. "Cool," the kids said, in awestruck. Miss Hudson thrust her arms into the air. "We arrived!" she cried, and everyone cheered. Chapter 3 is FBI Spy. So what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you make another prediction for what you think Chapter 3 is going to be about. The title is FBI Spy, and remember, we have just arrived in D.C. at their hotel. They haven't gone exploring yet, but they have gotten a little bit of insight from our George Washington friend. All right, so tune in next time for Chapter 3.